Great, thank you. Welcome back to Senate Education this Wednesday, February 21st. S-172, an act relating to the education of rights of children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind. Ms. Garces, thank you for joining us. We've been making our way through this bill for a couple of weeks now, just looking at the issue, whether, and I think one of the big things is what needs to be done out there to make certain that students are receiving what they need to receive so they can experience an excellent education.
I appreciate it. For the record, I'm Amanda Garcet, Director of Policy, Education, and Outreach for the Vermont Human Rights Commission. And I am so thankful to being here today. I think, so our mission at the Human Rights Commission is to promote full civil and human rights in Vermont. The commission enforces jurisdictional law through investigations, conciliations, litigation, education, and training, as well as advocating for policies and legislation to protect the most vulnerable Vermonters. In that spirit, we believe that every child deserves equal access to quality education, and this bill is a crucial step in ensuring that children who are deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind, have the educational support they need to thrive. This step seamlessly complements the Individuals with Disability Education Act idea and serves to address the specific needs of the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind students in Vermont within a broader framework. The Human Rights Commission has investigated and is currently investigating a number of complaints involving deaf and hard of hearing students who feel they have been denied services by school administrators and their teachers. We have also seen complaints of students who believe they have experienced harassment and peer abuse because of their hearing status. Unfortunately, because we must maintain the confidentiality of these complaints and the students' identities, I am not able to go into great detail about these complaints in this forum. When Act One submitted our final report, we encouraged the legislature to collaborate with deaf Vermonters advocacy services to gain a deep understanding of the unique needs of our deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind students. Furthermore, we recommend the establishment of a statutory policy aimed at providing comprehensive support to this demographic. I am confident that this bill aligns with the need of the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind community. Act One showed me a deep understanding of the importance of language diversity, recognizing it as a crucial element in a student's educational experience and academic success. We define language diversity as encompassing a wide range of communication systems and expressions, including official languages, endangered languages, indigenous and minoritized languages, dialects, and nonverbal languages in communication. The respect for and preservation of language diversity are fundamental to eradicating bias, racism, and discrimination, while fostering practices of inclusion, equity, and diversity and inclusion. So I took from the bill just a few points just to access some of the gaps that we do see.
Okay, before you do that,
Yes.
you just set the stage that'll help me in terms of the bill. Are you here to say, yeah, we need S-172?
Sorry. Yes, we are here to say that.
And one of the issues, if I may, has to do with despite what the law is, something is not being enforced. And this will, I'm just thinking when Senator, she was explaining the bill on the floor, this is gonna keep the backup that we.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I think we have to look at the history of IDEA, the law, and all the work that Vermont has done to advance rights for students with disabilities and people with disabilities in general. And there is this gap that still exists for the deaf and hard of hearing community, especially after the close of the deaf and
I know, yeah.
school. So, and you know what happened after that. So I think it's really important to this bill really upholds and holds the students with support.
And if I may, Ms. Garces, are you going to recommend any changes to it as it's introduced.
No, I am not.
Okay.
I was merely kind of looking at the bill and to just highlight some of the gaps that exist.
Mhm.
And I don't have to read them. I did submit it.
No, we have it, it's
And you
very
have it?
comprehensive, yeah.
And then I also share this, book chapter that is online that is about the special education law and the new idea for students who are deaf and hard of hearing. It really just walks you through about what idea does and what is needed. And why some of the things and some beautiful case studies about unique communication needs that really highlight the need for this. And so I think this chapter kind of gives you a little more of what is needed.
So I'm sure, please
Yeah.
continue and tell, however you like.
So, in some of the pieces of the bill, I just like to few that I think we see as the gap, right? Like the high quality, ongoing, and fluent means of communication. There's discrepancies in quality of communication support provided by different schools. So, again, we're talking about an equity issue that some schools might provide something better than others. And what this bill is going to try to do is like equalize that, right? While
And-
some schools might excel in providing effective communication, others may lack the necessary resources or training. Training is really a key piece in all of the things. These disparities has resulted in unequal opportunities and outcomes for students depending on their school environment. And so I believe the Bill of Rights will address placement in the least restrictive educational environment and services and accommodations based on individual needs. A few people testify it's already low, this already supposed to happen. The reality is that, sometimes it's easier to look to place the student somewhere else.
And that's my worries, one of my worries, is so if a student in one school, you're a high school student, you just moved to town. And you're in this district, I worry about kids being mistreated, saying, okay, we're not equipped. This Bill of Rights would say you're going to become equipped to have this. And I know people want to talk about cost of things. But I'm not saying on this committee, but this is one of the things that I recognize would cost something to get people trained, but it's the right thing to do.
And reinforces that importance. Often with Act One, that's what we always heard. It's like, only one student, right? Well, that student matters.
Sure.
And the families matters, and we should, this should be the aim for our state to really support the student. Educators and service providers trained to work with deaf and hard of hearing students. We know and it acknowledges that we have challenges right now with our current teachers. The number of teachers that we have licensed and all of that, but we really need to aim, just as we are saying educators need to be aligned with Act One and the principle is the same in this case. We cannot, differentiate that. Equipping educators with specialized knowledge and skills, we can ensure that these students receive the tailored support they require to thrive academically. Not like, I don't like to share personal stories, so I'm gonna do it. When my son has a developmental delay. When he was young, he had such a hard, he couldn't speak. So that was like hard. And he was so frustrated. He would scream, we couldn't communicate. So I never knew when he was hungry. I was stay at home mom trying to figure it all out. Some angel lady who was like one of our therapists said, sign language. You need sign language. And it was like he could speak. In fact, he screamed a lot. And so I was part of the Onion River Exchange, which is an exchange, it's a nonprofit that exchanges. And I was like, who can teach me sign language? And eventually I realized that it could be covered through whatever insurance we had. And we got someone to come and teach us. And he learned about 80 words within 2 weeks. He was so hungry to be able to communicate with me, to just be able to say, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. And that saved us, really, like all of our family. My daughter, who was 2 years older, learned sign language, we got the videos, we started, and he started to thrive, right?
Am I sharing how old he was at that point?
He was 2.5.
Okay.
So once he turned 3, then the school took as part of in the individualized education services. But like I noticed in like the preschool, and there was a little bit pushback, like he's never gonna learn how to speak if you continue the sign. And thankfully the sign language instructor was like, no, tell them he will. Like, he needs to be able to communicate in that setting too. So they should also learn some words. Specifically, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need a diaper change, whatever it is that he was needed. So when we talk about the different education, it's kind of like everybody has to learn AFL, which is like the basic principles around that. And so like for me, when I was writing this testimony, like I just kept thinking of that and just like how important it is just for like all of us to be like, this is a language too, right? Like it's so important for our stuff. With that said, the next one is the exposure to deaf and hard of hearing role models. In our discussions during Act 1 meetings, we emphasize the vital need for positive role models who share similar experiences and identities with those with marginalized identities. For the deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind students, the absence of such role models leaves students without mentors and inspiration to overcome challenges and pursue their goals. Exposure to successful role models within their community can significantly impact students' self-esteem, confidence, and sense of belonging. Even if there's only one student, the school can creatively address this challenge by collaborating with community members and integrating relevant content into the curriculum. By fostering these connections, schools can provide valuable support and guidance to students on their journey towards success. And I don't think we have a good community. There's a really good community that can provide those access points. And even just curriculum, like thinking about that.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Just want to clarify or confirm, I mean, I'm thinking about super small communities that just may not have a role model somewhere in that community or even nearby. And if the content is in the curriculum, like the way you're reading this bill, if it's books about role models or a movie about, or it's, something that doesn't involve an acting person being there because they're not available, would that be covered under this?
So I'll give you an example with Outright Vermont. They provide invaluable support to schools when working with students from LGBT, having affinity spaces, having a curriculum. There's like a lot of alignment around that. So that's the way. So yes, I think that would cover it. And I think to show about the creativity that can happen in small communities. When we were doing the last committee on student protections, one of the recommendations in that report is for the agency to do kind of like a power, I call it power mapping. It's like who's out there, who in our state provides or like supports with services, like so that families and like the school can say, hey, there's the Voice and Hands organization that has this, and here like how we can collaborate. And I think that we have really amazing disability rights organizations in our state that can provide that pathway that doesn't necessarily, eventually, hopefully every school has those role models. But like right now, when we have this field, that's kind of thing. There are ways to do it and be included. Did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah, very much. Thank you.
Direct and appropriate access to all components of the educational process. Again, this kind of helps to deal with the lack of uniformity across districts, which contributes to unequal access. So I know you have this, and I don't know how much time I have, but.
We have about 6 minutes.
Okay, so, I mean, you have it, so, you have this, and. I think I could focus those minutes and the two pieces also that I think are really important. I support like the state board really doing something around this. But I wanna address the complaint process. That, you know, a transparent and accessible complaint process, I'm on page 4, the third paragraph. A transparent and accessible complaint and resolution process is key in instilling confidence among students, families, and the broader community. It assures them that their concerns will be treated seriously and reason. Page 4, third paragraph.
Thank you.
He assures them that their concerns will be treated seriously and resolved promptly. However, stories tell us that the current process is not functioning effectively, often failing to provide satisfactory resolution for families and contributing to harm. Navigating these complaints can be emotionally challenging for parents, underscoring the urgent need for schools and agencies to continuously improve and offer avenues for redress. We must strive for a better process, one that fosters greater confidence among families, ensures they feel supported and empowered. Ultimately, this contributes to a more positive and inclusive education environment for all involved. So I think the agency does a lot of work, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done within that complaint process. And I said it's always in this committee that it would, at some point we have to start protecting the students and at the institutions, right? Like, so. With that. I hope that's helpful.
I did vote 8%. All right, I've got a question for you. So I understand that, you know, really the goal of the bill is completely equalize access across all schools, wherever there's a family that has, you know, students have a need for this type of education. But I understand, and I also understand there's been shortcomings, and they were pretty clear in testimony. And I'm wondering though, if this is like, if the current system, if there's a system failure across the state, or if there are enhancements that need to be made or more attention paid to the application of this type of education or other type of education. And I'm wondering what I guess I just need a summary that the bill actually would do something to affect that. You know, that would have the desired effect, or whether it was a lapse of supervision of, you know, program at some point or other in a particular part of the state, or feedback to a family. I'm just wondering what the bill really does to address the shortcoming that's been tested.
Yeah, I mean, I think to start, I thought about this because I was like, Bill of Rights, like they just like wishy-washy here. Now you have the rights, but like where there's the accountability mechanism. And I believe it, you know, you have the IDEA law, you have those special education rights currently that exist, but we have seen the gap. So what this is doing is covering that. So I do believe actually after I thought about it and read it again and looking at the last pieces, I did not print out around the accountability piece. The complaint process, the accountability piece, and I think like, you know, you could enhance it by adding a little more structure about like data, which is always helpful to see like what for progress, like what maybe it's there, right? The progress, like there's like reporting progress. So I think it does something. And I think it's not wishy-washy. I thought about it.
I didn't say we should.
Well, I said it because sometimes we do that, right? Like we write like there's a Bill of Rights that doesn't have any teeth. I believe this kind of stuff.
Thank you.
So I was wondering about, you know, compliance. If, I don't even know how many, people we have that fit this category in Vermont. And I know that if we're gonna require every school to have somebody that can teach, you know, deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind people, how are we gonna accomplish it? So, I mean, every school, every school, we require them to have somebody that can do what they do. You know, or we're gonna put them on the road traveling to where they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that depends on. The way I'm reading this, it's, you know, if there is no student who falls into that category, I don't think that the school would still be required to have an ASL teacher who meets all these requirements. I mean, I'm keeping in the back of my mind that, you know, education in Vermont is a constitutional right.
Right.
And, you know, if we're not providing it to an equal level for a student who falls into one of these categories, then, you know, that's a problem. And
I
so,
mean, I support it and I understand the constitutionality of it, but, you know, the practicality of meeting the requirements. If every school had people that needed that particular attention, then that would be, you know, they would have to be in compliance with.
if every school, I mean, I would say yes, if every single school in Vermont has a deaf student or a deaf blind student or someone who's hard of hearing, then yes, that school should provide services for that kiddo so that they can have an education.
Anything else? Discuss this. So we've heard from, looking at our list, about a dozen people on this bill. We haven't heard opposition. I'm going to sorry.
I think, I don't want to say opposition, but, and I don't want to speak for any entities, but I mean, I
Please.
think that we have heard that there are concerns from different groups that there might be some redundancies in this. So I don't know if that's
That's fair.
opposition, but
Yeah,
a concern from them. I mean, I would like to go, even though it may be arduous, I would like to go, you know, section by section eventually and figure out what is already in law or is already applicable.
yeah.
And then really winnow down to what really is a gap that we can address with this bill.
Can I say something about that? I think just the Bill of Rights itself gives you the overall and it's a complement to the law. And some of the section already says this is the law. And it's just like the whole thing gives you the package of like, and so legislative, I don't know, like, I think that you always mention other laws and that you cross-reference them. Where, maybe that's for your legislative council. I would have to.
Right, no, it's good to know. That's what I want to know. It's, you know, does anything need to be removed or is it, you know, is this package complete?
Yeah, please.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, the only criticism that I recall on this bill is that this puts this disability ahead of other disabilities with the Bill of Rights, while others don't. And I'm not saying that that necessarily is a reason to ignore the effort, but it at least resonated that, okay, interesting. So, you know, what other disabilities are out there that we're not paying proper attention to? That's kind of the extent of
Yeah.
the criticism.
Thanks for raising that. One thing we might want to do with this bill, given that, is in addition, we won't have time to cover all the issues this year. This one is front and center, but we could put, you know, section 2.3 that says we would ask the agency of education or the appropriate people to come back and in January of 2025, let us know the other disabilities that we should, something like that, so it is. And we have to hear from a couple of other folks, but you've been the leader on this, so you let us know, in addition to we've heard Principals Association, but we'll hear from a couple of other Bs. If there's anybody else you want to hear. Okay, and then we'll also have to kind of listen to the block. Maybe move it at the end of this week. And maybe it makes sense. I mean, Ms. Garza says, no, keep it as a package, but if you don't want to keep it as a package.
Well, no, I mean, if that's the recommendation,
Yeah,
yes, but, you know, if one of the Bs comes in and they point to a particular line and they say, this is actually already written in this statute, and you're, you know, just repeating it, and I'm not opposed to cleaning things up.
I would ask Ms. St. James if she knows of anything, not that I don't trust the Bs, but she's gonna be the one who's gonna know. Yeah, so if you want to reach out to her, that would be great. We good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Drake. No, we're actually gonna start with you. Give me 2 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. It's gonna be free, it's like a gift.
Wow. What a surprise.
Thanks for joining us. We are shifting, we're going back to a topic. We had a long conversation around career technical education earlier. And one of the things that, I'm gonna give you a copy of the bill, F 304, Section 9 talks about state colleges working with high schools, with CTE programs to create course articulation agreements. And I'm gonna give this to you, so you can take it with you. We just need to know, and we're hoping the agency is gonna reach out to you. But we would like you all to have an opportunity to look at this language, and if you could get back to us in the next couple of days. By Friday, the secretary's coming in. And that is the section. Let us know what the state colleges. It was mentioned. Forgot, I think it was Senator Gulick said, why isn't UVM on this? So do you mind printing me up another copy? Okay.
I'm sorry, if that's 304?
Please, yes. We'll give a copy to you as well. I was just reminded as I was talking that Senator Gulick was wondering if UVM should be there. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at it as well, that would be terrific. Any other questions while we have Drake and witness share? Okay.
And you said you all are taking testimony on this on Friday?
Friday.
Okay.
And our hope is to move it toward the end of next week.
Okay.
It's,
Sounds great. I will take a look into this and we should have something to share with you by Friday.
thanks, Tonight,
Yeah,
Ms.
thank
Tony will print up a clean copy. And
Sounds
over
great.
it as well.
Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Morgan. Okay. Representative Ivy Dickinson, the name is familiar, but I don't know if I could put her, is she in, is she here?
Nice background.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
It's great that you're here. This is a familiar conversation, not so much with this committee, but prior committee, Senate Education Committee. And so we're looking at S-238 and we're looking at S-216. What we're trying to figure out is there a role for faculty and staff on the state, at the state university, on the board of trustees? So any thoughts you have as the chair, as a long serving member? I remember first voting for you, and I did vote for you. It must have, I was in the House first or second term, you've been on for quite a while. Yeah, so.
Yes.
So please, we are all ears, and look forward to hearing your advice.
Okay, well, thank you very much. For the record, I'm Representative Lynn Dickinson. Eileen is my legal name. I am representing St. Albans Town here in the House. I have been here 16 years. This is now my 16th year. I've been on the board of the trustees of Vermont State Colleges for 12 years. This is my 12 years. And I am currently the chair of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to come today. And I'd like to make some comments about the role of the trustees, recent and future efforts to make the work of the Board of Trustees more transparent, and brief comments on S-238. Board of Trustees plays a crucial role in the governance and strategic oversight of the Vermont State College system. The trustees are the leadership team that chart the course of the system. The board shares in the decisions that shape how the system addresses the needs of current students and constituents and how the VSES will transform and evolve to meet the needs of the future. Working with Chancellor, we are responsible for establishing the system's mission, vision, and policy. These include academic, financial, and administrative policies that govern the institution's operations. We oversee the system's finances, including approving the annual budget, setting tuition rates, and ensuring financial stability and accountability. The board also appoints, evaluates, and if necessary, removes the chancellor of the system. This ensures the institution's leadership aligns with its goals and policies. It's important to remember that the board operates at a strategic level. The day-to-day operations are the role of the administration of the staff. For the benefit of Vermont, this is how our mission statement begins. For the benefit of Vermont, we remain steadfast in our commitment to providing access to affordable, high-quality, post-secondary education in all corners of the state. The Board of Trustees of the Vermont State College System is the fiduciary of the system and is charged with the oversight of the corporation. As the governing board of the system, the board is the final authority and is held accountable for both the system and the institutions within it. Since 2021, much of the work of the Board of Trustees has been focused on supporting the transformation of the system, which has been necessary to ensure high-quality rural education for our students.
High quality,
Education,
would you say rural education?
rural education, well, we are rural campuses, we accept
I see.
students from all over the
Yeah.
state. And we have campuses and sites all through the state. In all different districts and counties of the state. We have had to make difficult decisions to preserve the system, but the intentional action taken and the commitment shown by the Board of Trustees has contributed significantly to our successful work on transformation thus far. We embrace this transformation wholeheartedly. It has been a tremendous time of uncertainty for students, faculty, staff, and our communities as we've navigated the past few years. We are in a stronger position today, thanks to the investment of the legislature and the partnership of the state, and this transformation will be successful. We have a lot of change ahead of us, and we appreciate your continued support as we navigate the years ahead. And as a board, we share common goals with all members of the Vermont State College System family. We want to maintain our campuses, our programs, and opportunities for Vermonters all through the state. In recent years, we have made a concerted effort to improve the transparency of and access to the work of the board. Recent activities include implementing virtual live streamed meetings. This has not only increased board participation, but also increased access to these important meetings for our faculty, staff, and community. We are moving public comment. We did move public comment to the beginning of the meetings. This gives trustees the benefit of the public's insight before critical issues are discussed. This was a change that was made at the suggestion of a staff member, actually the staff federation president, and it was a really good idea. And we have greatly increased our participation in that public comment part, which is really important. In addition, the faculty and staff liaisons have been appointed to the Education, Personnel, and Student-Led Committee. This model has been successful, and you heard from Chancellor Mauck last week. She is looking into expanding the practice to the rest of our board committees, regardless of what happens with this bill. I can speak from experience. The committees are where the bulk of the work the board is done, so this is important. We want to keep evolving to make the work of the board more transparent for our communities. We hope that these changes will offer an opportunity for faculty and staff to have increased input into the work of the board and enhance our collective transformation efforts for the benefit of our students. Comments on S-238. If your committee decides to pursue S-238, I would like to offer the following considerations. S-238 proposes adjusting the composition of the board of trustees and would cut the number of legislative trustees in half, from the 4 who currently serve down to only 2. Our legislative trustees are a critical component of the board's makeup. I do not support reducing the number of legislative trustees. The Vermont State College system was created by the legislature, and as such, robust legislative oversight on our Board of Trustees has greatly benefited the health of the system. Our legislative trustees have served the system well, and I believe their contributions are essential to the health of the system moving forward. And in closing, thank you again for having me here. We are grateful for your shared vision and the goal of a thriving Vermont State College that puts our standards of students at the center and meets Vermonters where they are with affordable, high quality, higher education. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Why are 4 legislators more important than having faculty and staff?
Well, for one reason, we are a state component of the state. And so the legislative trustees, just like they serve in other public institutions, are in contact day to day and the needs of the state and the needs of their constituents. And they are in a position to actually have some impact on what actually is being done in the legislature. We only have 4 of them. Other institutions have more than that, but we have 4, 2 every 2 years.
So you couldn't do that with 2 legislators? They could have,
Good, but I think that we've got geographic distribution and experience distribution, and as it works out, all 4 of our trustees come from different parts of the state. And that's important because you don't want to forget Bennington or the Northeast Kingdom or other parts of the state. You wouldn't want them all like from Chittenden County, or 2 of them from Chittenden County. We want to be distributed throughout the state, which is also, I believe, a requirement for our trustees for all the other positions as well. It's something we work at to make sure they're represented.
who provides oversight on spending?
We provide oversight, that's correct.
Um,
We have a CFO. I mean, we don't do it ourselves. We're not the
okay,
day-to-day people, but we have management, administrators, and they're accountable to us.
thank you.
Thank you for testifying. I appreciate it. I think your points are well taken and thank you, but my thoughts are on, who has a better idea on the day-to-day activities, on these campuses. And, we're, legislators, we're all very busy. We are doing all sorts of different things, but, somebody who is faculty member or a staff member, I feel like they can also provide a lot of insight about day-to-day operations. And so, so I guess my question is, how involved on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis are one of the legislators on this committee or this board when they're, let me rephrase this question. How involved are the legislators on this board in the day-to-day understandings?
Well, we don't work on the campuses.
Yeah.
So we do not do the day-to-day, no trustee does the day-to-day work on any campus that I'm aware of at all. We are here as the oversight, we are the policymakers, we're the strategic planners. Do legislators take a lot of interest in this? Do they work hard at it? The answer has to be yes. I have seen people who, well, I've had several people mention to me that I've got a full-time job doing this. But there's lots of other people in the legislature. I see them in the building all the time, going up to the legislators and talking about why are you doing this? What is the work with that? What about this concern? And that's not just in here, that's also in our communities.
Thank you.
So I thank you, Representative. Sometimes we fail to recognize that pressures of transformation are, still on your shoulders, and certainly respect that. But to the point, I'm going to kind of skate between my 2 colleagues here and ask do you see value in having faculty or staff on the trustee board?
I see value in having contact with the faculty and the staff. We are spread all through the state. All of the faculty and staff are spread all through the state, different campuses and on different sites. And we do have representatives on the board from those different geographic areas. Some people in the Northeast Kingdom have someone that they can talk to, someone in the central part of the state. Down in Rutland, we have someone on the board. And they do have contact with faculty and staff. We have, different capacities. So yes, there is value certainly, and we certainly have, one of the reasons we, changed the time for our public comment, which is often people from the faculty and staff, at the beginning of the meeting, is so that we could hear more of them more often. Then wait to the very end, when everybody's gone home after 4 hours, we hear that right up front. We hear from the students. We have a DEI committee where the students came in, many of them were very instrumental in forming and being involved with that formation initiatives. And they had a lot to say. So we heard from them often at those committee meetings. So the liaison to the committees are really important. And they're, we've had town meetings. We have had project management process that was created as part of transformation, included people from faculty and staff on each one of those different areas of work that they worked on. We had administration, academics, IT, finances, facilities, student services. Students were involved with that as well. So yes, we do want to hear, and we do want them to work together with us. And we're certainly willing to listen and take suggestions.
Okay, so first, let me say that I think that the initiative that you guys started with having student faculty, and I think you said students as well, as members in the committees, that's.
Yes,
Well,
but we have a student trustee that's elected by the Student Government Association.
Well, my question is a little different. So in your response to the initial question was you're talking about contact. My question is very specific. Do you see value in membership?
I'm not sure that we necessarily need membership.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that there are venues and there's ways that we can listen to and be involved with the faculty. They have their own governance structure as well, in the faculty assemblies. So they have their own avenue to work with people.
Good. Then if I could. Given that you support the 4 legislators on the board of trustees, okay, I get it's very clear. But would you entertain retaining the 4 legislators and adding, 2 representatives of the faculty staff? I mean, is that a compromise that you could potentially get your head around?
Well, I certainly think you need at least 4 legislators. I don't think you need any more than that from the legislature. However, that other question of whether you want to add faculty or staff is a policy question that this committee will have to decide.
Okay, but again, I'm really just looking for your opinion.
Well, I think
That's
that
very
I don't,
experienced.
yeah, I really think that's policy decision that this committee has to
Okay.
decide.
Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, I've always struggled with it personally, the shared governance idea. I do believe generally that the board is there for a reason. The administration does day-to-day kinds of things. But as you mentioned, this is maybe of 5 people sort of figure out where they're at on this issue. We took a lot of testimony a few years ago on this.
Mhm.
I've heard from institutions across the country. It really varies. I think the one that stands out to me, not in any way as I'm sure they're effective, but the most interesting was that Cornell University requires a descendant of the founder to be on the board. So it's just interesting that there are so many, such a range out there. As it relates to legislative trustees, I'm mixed. I'm personally not looking to change it, but gosh, I think there's a role maybe for legislators. Clearly, things work at certain institutions probably well, but I wouldn't want a legislator. I'm going to be frank. Listen, boards raise money also. That's part of their job and responsibility. Raise money, donate money, all these things. It's a complex organism within itself. And somebody wanted to come on the board and say, what I'd love to do for the state university is get 20 million annually. And somebody said, oh, well, we don't have a spot for you right now. And not that that's happening, but, yeah, we all wish it were the case that we don't need bucks for all these nonprofits, institutions across the country. And I guess really just talking the complexity of it, and what's out there, some of the issues that I've had. So. Nothing you need to comment on, but it's kind of the real world and what we're all facing.
Well, Senator, if someone volunteered to come on our board and give us $20 million, we wouldn't hesitate for 5 seconds to say, we'd love to have you come. There, that is a,
But,
let me go back.
yeah, please.
I don't know that we would want to do that unless we had more detail as to what exactly they were trying to accomplish.
Of course.
The primary goal.
I'm
is
saying, right, of course.
The primary goal is here to be the higher institution
Well, you have the
for
fiduciary responsibility.
Vermonters, folks in Vermont of all ages and all backgrounds that we serve and that we have been serving all these years. And to go and they're the people who generally stay in Vermont and work in Vermont. We need them as employees, we need them as business people.
I think I'm about.
Last question, I promise.
Sure.
So if I were to have a question about the financial matters of BSCS, and should I go to the chancellor's office to find it, or would I go to the board?
Probably the best place to go would be to go to the chancellor's office through the CFO. I believe our COO has been in here and testified with the chancellor in the past.
She's terrific.
She's really good. But she would be the one who's the most knowledgeable. We get a report from her at our finance and facilities meetings. We have a chair of finance, we have members of the finance committee.
Yet the ultimate decision is with the board.
We have, yeah, and the chair of our board is the president of the bank. I mean, he's from the Morris School area and he's very knowledgeable. We have leadership, executive leadership people on our board. We have the CEO of one of the hospitals in the state who was on our board from the kingdom. And he's on finance.
Thought you were sure.
I'm the chair of the board, but they're on the finance committee.
Oh,
I'm on the finance committee as well, but yeah, really the CFO is the person you need to speak with.
Sure.
You want to find out about finances? I'm sure she'd be happy to explain.
Certainly, yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, the point is well taken about, having legislators on the board, and I appreciate that, but I can't see the harm in having a staff and a faculty member also on the board. And I mean, I get that, they're contacted and there's communication and they send suggestions, but it's different to have them in a position where they can also have decision-making power and oversight power, or an oversight role in this system. So, I mean, I'm open to making it 4 legislators or keeping it 4 legislators. We're going to 2 legislators, but that one I'm still grappling with, but, I can't think of anything that would cause harm. And in fact, I think it would be beneficial to have faculty and a staff member on the board. So those are my initial thoughts.
Well, I know it was a different committee. There's
Yeah.
a group of people here before.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be that you invite someone who is expert on board compositions for universities and colleges. Any other nonprofit probably, but we'd be happy to give you information on people that we know that are experts in this field. So if you need that, I'm sure that would be a good time to find something.
Yeah, and we also should have a conversation with our House counterparts. In the end, we did pass a bill, and the House is generally not interested in this kind of work, and so it didn't go anywhere. And it was an awful lot of time and effort for something that, again, didn't really work. Yeah. So.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Senator Williams, you have a couple of folks that might want to say a couple of words.
I think so.
Okay. So,
I am truly the absent-minded professor. I left my testimony somewhere in the building, so I'm reading it off my phone, from her phone. I don't even know how my phone. So yeah, truly, I do fit that stereotype. My name is Linda Olson, and I am a professor at BTSU Castleton. This is the end of my 29th year there. So I've been there for a very long time. And I also serve as the co-president for higher education for AFT Vermont. And I want to start by saying, I'm not going to go off script here. I'm just going to start by saying, we love your compromise, and we'd be very happy with a compromise where you keep the 4 legislators, but have faculty and staff representation. That sounds like a worthwhile compromise to me. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today. And I would like to show you the importance of having the input of student-facing personnel on BTSU, on the BTSU Board of Trustees. Virtually every decision that has been made that has ramifications that impacted our enrollment over the past 4 years is because there was not a concerted effort to be on the campuses, to talk to the people who actually do the work on the campuses, or to have them come to the board and explain what decisions might look like if they were made. For example, the decision to go all digital library and make that public before actually listening to the librarians who thought that would be a terrible idea and also an expensive one. Going with that decision rather than listening to the ones who are actually doing the work and understand the work. And that combined with the change or elimination in athletics proved disastrous for us. It resulted in a 20% decline in enrollment. And our faculty at Johnson, the proposal was to change the classification of athletics at Johnson. We had a math professor and another professor do a survey of the students who would be impacted to see, I mean, these are people who know how to do surveys too, to see what the ramifications of this decision would be. 85% of student athletes responded to that survey, and the vast majority of them said they would not be returning, that they would be leaving the campus. Retention is critical when we're facing all these other obstacles. And to make decisions that impact retention will be our death knell. It will destroy us. Okay. If the librarians and the faculty who actually did the survey of the athletes were consulted and were able to say this is a bad decision that will harm enrollment, then we might have avoided that situation. We also need people who do the boots on the ground work, to put it quite bluntly, because decisions were made without an appreciation of the day-to-day life of the campuses, right? So for example, virtually all of the positions that were cut were student-facing positions. Virtually all of them. Even
student-facing.
student-facing, faculty and staff positions. There were very few cuts in upper level administration, but that is where the bloat is. Okay, we can provide the data. Some of you have been to meetings with the labor task force and have heard about this, but we can provide the data to support that. These cuts have resulted in an unbearable increase in workload issues for faculty, staff, but they've also resulted in students questioning whether they want to stay on campus. So once again, affecting enrollment. Let's give you a couple of examples. On each of the campuses, there's a significant decline in the infrastructure because this has not been maintained over the years. One of the decisions, I'm going to speak from Castleton because that's what I know best, but this is true on all the campuses. One of the decisions made for the cuts that was approved by the board was to cut Jake Rick, who is the director of physical plans at Castleton. And Jake Rick is sort of known as the MacGyver of campus. And he has been able to maintain our campus despite the crumbling infrastructure. So we have situations at Castleton, just give you a couple of recent ones. One of them is that one of the residence halls didn't have hot water for a week. Another residence hall had black mold in the residence rooms. So they had to be moved out so that could be taken care of. Obviously, that's a health issue. Leavenworth Hall, which is the largest academic building on campus, had no heat for 9 days in the winter. And then when they fixed it, we now have 95-degree classrooms and offices in Leavenworth Hall.
But may I ask, how do you see the connection to the board of I mean, did somebody communicate to the board? Did the board not get back to people that there was no heat?
Well, I see it as if they had.
Well, no, just
considered-
answer that first. Did somebody communicate?
Well,
to
I
the
actually
board
said this to the board. I actually
Okay.
brought this up to the board in public comment.
while it was happening?
While it was happening,
Okay.
yes, while it was happening, Rick had not been
Yeah.
formally laid off at that point. I brought up the crumbling infrastructure, and I appreciate that the public comments come first now, but they don't change, it's become something performative, almost like we can get our frustration out, but nothing has resulted from it. So,
But that's a really serious situation. I just want to go back. So
Yeah.
The dormitory didn't have heat for 9 days.
no, that was Leavenworth Hall, which is
An academic
the largest academic building on
Okay.
campus.
Okay.
9 days.
Okay,
Yes, in fact, in the content lab in the basement, it was 42 degrees in one of the classrooms.
so, and were classes being conducted in Leavenworth Hall?
They were,
Those temperatures were.
They were.
42 degrees.
they were.
Okay.
Many of us let our students go early because they were wearing their parkas and still cold.
Mhm.
But yes, the classes were still going on.
Okay.
And the 95-degree, for me, I like cold better than hot.
Sure.
So that's even worse to me, to sit in my office, which is 95 degrees in the middle of winter with the windows open. And it has to do with just the boiler system that completely needs to be replaced. But if you get rid of the people who know how to at least tweak it or MacGyver it, then you have that situation, right? Chair Dickinson said at one point in the media, she was quoted as saying, which maybe it wasn't what she said, but this is what was quoted, that the board makes decisions from 30,000 feet up. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And I would say the fiduciary responsibility of the board cannot be met if they don't know what is going on campuses. That is that is their task, fiduciary health and wellness of the campuses. But if they're not doing that, they're not understanding or they're not being made aware what's going on the campuses, they cannot make informed decisions that maintain the fiduciary health. Because when people come, prospective students come and they see stairs crumbling, or they see, things that are not being maintained, or garbage that isn't regularly picked up because we don't have enough staff, and we can't hire enough staff at what we pay to keep up with the garbage. All of that impacts our enrollment, and laying off student-facing positions like the dean of students on all campuses. That could not only prove disastrous for the campuses, it could be a huge liability and lawsuit if you don't have a contact on campus in the case of sexual assault, or in the case on Castleton's campus of a murder happened. We had a former dean who was shot on an adjacent trail to the campus. We need someone to do this hands-on, face-to-face work. So all of this chaos results in students questioning their choice in college, and therefore impacts the fiduciary health of the institutions. It's hard for them to justify spending more than $10,000 in tuitions and growing student fees. This is another problem. When the campus is literally crumbling around them, or they no longer have the academic support they once had, or they can no longer negotiate their FAFSA forms because the director of financial aid of each of the campuses has been laid off, right? All of this impacts our students and how able they are to complete their degrees. If we had student-facing faculty and staff on the board of trustees, these decisions could have been avoided. We could have avoided a decision that resulted in 20% decline in enrollment. And by the way, that 20% decline was used to justify the cuts that were made. All right, if we had like normal enrollment, we would not have had as many buyouts for faculty, for example, or as many layoffs of faculty. And one thing that I really want to hammer this home, because to me this is a social justice issue. Our tuition and our tuition is not affordable for our students still, right? And we continuously provide support for free tuition for CCV students, and I think we should do that. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Right.
What I'm saying is we should be doing the same for the students at BTSU to increase enrollment of students, because the student population is very similar. Most of our students are first-gen students, most of our students are Vermonters, and we actually have more Pell eligible students, just by a tweak, than CCV does. So we have more low to moderate income students than CCV does. And I think that the divide between CCV and BTSU is an unnatural one, in my opinion, as well. But all of these things taken into consideration, we can make better fiduciary decisions, better decisions for our students, better decisions for our public requirement to the state if all voices are at the table. So I would love if we made that compromise that you suggested. We would be very happy with that, because then we would have those student-facing positions right at the table.
What university has done this and it's really taken off and really?
You mean put faculty staff? I know of faculty,
Okay,
okay? I don't know the number for staff, but I do know that 26% of public institutions have put faculty representation. That's full voting representation.
What percentage?
26% of public institutions
in the United States.
in the United States. That's right. That's right. What I would say is there are other campuses that just put, an advisory, or they have
Yeah.
faculty and staff, non-voting faculty and staff. We would like to see voting faculty and staff on the boards for the reasons I just mentioned. And that is true at 26% of public institutions in the country.
We have about 5 more minutes. Questions, comments?
Just a very quick
Yes, please.
comment.
No, go
So, I don't want to take credit for the compromise
Mhm.
suggestion.
I'll give you credit.
Someone-
It's
no,
fine.
Someone far smarter than me recommended it. I just articulated.
Okay,
Thank you for saying. that.
we appreciate it.
Individual knows who they were. Okay, I'll leave it.
That was Joe.
Go.
Yeah,
So-
please, this is.
So,
I think that this-
Okay, so you outlined a whole series of scenarios at the campus, which were unfortunate, right? But do you feel that the decisions that were made a year ago or a year and a half ago
Mhm.
could have been avoided by one or two people sitting on the board
Mhm.
when it's
Question.
majority rules, right?
Mhm.
There's no guarantee that, one or two people are gonna be able to convince the group that their message is correct. So,
No, that's totally true, and that's a fair question. I think this is a step in the right direction. I do. But you're right, unless the person is incredibly convincing, they might not be able to move the board to what they see to be more fiduciary, more responsible in terms of the financial health and well-being of institutions. But right now, we have no perspective except for the students. The student perspective is good. And remember, the student is a voting member on the board. We have no representation except for the students, who typically does a really good job. Our student trustee this year is fantastic, really, really good. But it seems to me that we would also benefit from the day-to-day lived experiences on the campus, on the board as well. And I do think we might have been able to avoid some of these situations if there was some realization that we do have experience that the board should be listening to and tapping into rather than largely ignoring.
Yeah.
So does each campus have a student?
No, just one student member. Yeah,
Okay.
we'd love more students on both those.
Yeah, I mean, how can you have, how many camps, 4 campuses? And not, because the board used to, from what I understand, you go around to each campus
That's right.
and have their meetings, they don't do that anymore, so hence the 30,000 foot.
Right.
If you're a manager and you're a direct manager, then you're gonna be out there management by walking around. If you're not seeing the crumbling infrastructure, and you're not hearing it from your faculty or staff members.
Yep, I agree with that. And it was nice when the board would come because there would be a reception afterwards. They would mingle with faculty and staff. So at least they were getting some insight into the way the campuses were operating.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, yeah. Okay, committee, we know the situation before us, so. We need to figure out where everybody is on it. And probably have an opportunity to revisit this question during the week, so if there's anybody else, anybody wants to hear from. Given that I would also say we have a lot of bills to get out. We could always, if we need to, the House is hopefully gonna send us a miscellaneous education bill, we could always do it. Take more testimony after crossover, but right now, I'm not sure.
Two thirty-eight is a component of Senator Calmer's bill 216.
Right.
So, do we wanna sit down and look at pieces and make one bill out of them?
Well, I don't, yes, so the answer is yes, we would probably. I don't see us again, I don't think the committee, I haven't seen the interest from the committee of dissolving the chancellor's position. And then there's the question of giving folks a break from the staff reduction now. Which we would have to probably take more testimony after crossover on that. People wanted for, the thing that I'm thinking right now is really before us is the makeup of the board of trustees and what that would look like in terms of a pre-crossover conversation. Yeah.
So both of the legislators that were just elected are in the House. Do we have anybody from the Senate on there?
We haven't, and we used to have a senator, I think Senator Bray was on it. Oh, no, he was UVM.
He was UVM.
And the Senate generally does not get elected because there aren't many of us, and we're not as well known. And so the House generally dominates in terms of those elections. I haven't even seen a senator put their name forward in a long time because the House has 150 members unless this bill that we put in drops to the Senate.
So is there any requirement that all four legislators be from the House?
No, if you could run next time, I would certainly vote for you.
Because I put sergeant in a week, so.
I put.
Corporal, yeah.
Senator Kemp's chair, I just want, Lynn Dickinson, Representative Dickinson speaking. I just want to point out that when Senator Bray was elected, he was a member of the House and he
Yes.
was elected to the UVM board.
Oh.
That's right,
If
yes.
I was here. we
And
did
then
that.
when he ran for re-election, he was in the Senate.
Yes.
And he went down in flames. Maybe not down in
Oh, well.
flames, but he lost.
I don't remember that, but I do remember when
It
he
is
first got
hard
elected.
for a senator to get elected generally.
So we have to wait another year for the next
2
one.
years for, the next two will be after 2 years.
If you really want to be on one of these boards and you're in the Senate, the governor gets an appointee. I would talk to the governor.
Sure.
My advice, I don't,
I'll go.
Mm.
Put me in code.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Thanks, everybody. I think we're